The court followed its script perfectly, which was why the mistake was so obvious. Voices rose and fell in approved patterns, arguments collided and resolved exactly where they were expected to, and every thought passed through the Queen's awareness like light through clear water. Ambition tasted sharp, fear hummed. One advisor was silently rehearsing a speech he would never be allowed to give, which the Queen found mildly entertaining. Then her perception reached a point where something should have been, and wasn't. She adjusted, assuming interference. Nothing changed. She focused harder the way one did when a familiar word suddenly lost meaning. The absence remained stubborn and complete. The sensation was not threatening. It was insulting. Her attention drifted to the edge of the chamber where a human guard stood at ceremonial attention. He had been placed there because symmetry demanded it, not because anyone expected him to matter. Humans rarely did. They filled space, followed orders, and occupied the mental background like static, except this one did not exist at all. "Pause," the Queen said. The court froze instantly, mid-thought, mid-breath. Someone's anxiety spiked so suddenly it knocked over a drink drone which shut itself off in shame. She stepped toward the human. Her awareness brushed the surrounding minds, flinching, curious, smug, then slid past him again, empty-handed. It was like trying to grasp a shadow that refused to be cast. "You," she said, more curious than commanding, "respond." The human did not. A noble cleared their throat. "Your Majesty, the guard is mute." "I am aware," she replied. "I was not listening for sound." A few nervous laughs rippled through the chamber, quickly suppressed. The Queen circled the human slowly, her perception widening, narrowing, recalibrating. Systems chimed quietly in protest. A technician whispered, "The scanners are fine." "Of course they are," another whispered back. "It's the universe that's broken." That earned a snort from someone who immediately regretted it. The Queen stopped in front of the guard. He met her gaze without reverence, without challenge, without the internal noise everyone else carried like a badge. The silence around him felt deliberate, though she could not say why. "Fascinating," she said. One counselor leaned toward another. "Should we reset something?" The Queen smiled. It startled the room more than anger would have. "No," she said. "If something has learned how to avoid being seen, the last thing we should do is announce we've noticed." She returned to her throne. The court exhaled, confused but relieved. Proceedings resumed, slightly off rhythm now, like a song played in the wrong key. The human remained where he was, silent as ever. And for the rest of the session, the Queen could not stop thinking about the one mind she could not hear. By the next cycle, the palace had decided the safest response to the incident was excessive competence. Diagnostics ran continuously. Reports multiplied. Every system that could confirm it was functioning correctly did so with increasing defensiveness. One sent a message stating, "I have never failed before asterisk," which was archived as unhelpful but emotionally honest. The Queen read everything. She did not sit. "Bring the human closer," she said. This caused immediate administrative distress. No one was certain what closer meant in relation to a being whose mental distance could not be measured. After a brief argument involving 3 departments and one offended algorithm, the human was repositioned several steps forward. Nothing exploded. Several people looked disappointed. The Queen reached again. Nothing. She felt irritation flicker and fade. Reaching him was like trying to remember a dream that refused to exist. The court watched her carefully, as if waiting for a crack in the universe. "Begin stimulation," she said. A cognitive pressure field activated, gentle enough to cause discomfort but strong enough to provoke response. The chamber reacted immediately. Thoughts spiked, emotions tangled. One noble experienced a sudden and vivid memory of childhood humiliation and demanded compensation. The human shifted his weight. "That's it," someone whispered. "That's the response." "Progress," another whispered back. "Don't rush him." The field intensified. Warnings appeared, then politely reappeared when ignored. The human did not react. He did not resist. He simply remained unregistered. He's doing it on purpose, a scientist said. Doing what? Another replied, exactly. The queen surprised herself by laughing. The sound cut cleanly through the chamber, sharp and real. Several counselors froze, unsure whether to join in or file a report. Deactivate the field, she said. It's embarrassing us. The field shut down at once, sulking. A researcher stepped forward. Permission to ask the human a direct question. The queen considered this, then nodded. The researcher turned. Are you aware that you are undetectable to imperial perception? The human thought for a long moment. Then he lifted one shoulder in a partial shrug. Multiple systems attempted to translate the gesture. None agreed. That's not an answer, someone said. It's the most honest one we've had, someone else replied. The queen watched the human closely. Without constant psychic input, she noticed other things. Timing, stillness, the way the room seemed to slow around him. She realized she was thinking instead of knowing. It was unfamiliar. It was not unpleasant. Remove him from standard duty, she said. A ripple of shock, promotion, punishment. Assign him to proximity, she continued. I want to see what else stops working. The human inclined his head, a minimal acknowledgement that somehow felt complete. As the court dissolved into quiet confusion, one advisor muttered, "We've built an empire on knowing everything." The queen allowed herself another smile. "Yes," she said, "and now we've met something that doesn't care." The empire reacted to uncertainty the way it always did, by holding meetings about it until uncertainty grew bored and wandered off. Unfortunately, this one stayed. Committees formed, dissolved, and reformed under slightly different names. One was called the Cognitive Anomaly Task Force, which was later renamed the Cognitive Anomaly Discussion Circle after it failed to produce anything actionable. A smaller group attempted to classify the human as a statistical error. The statistics refused. The human remained near the queen, close enough that her perception bent around him, like a river encountering an object it could not erode. She found herself noticing the pauses between thoughts instead of the thoughts themselves. It was irritating. It was calming. It was deeply inconvenient. "Your Majesty," a strategist said during one session, "we believe the human is disrupting cognitive flow within the chamber." At that moment, two nobles stopped arguing mid-sentence and stared at each other, both realizing they no longer remembered what victory was supposed to feel like. "I see," the queen said. "Has the flow filed a complaint?" The strategist hesitated. "No." "Then let it adapt." A few restrained chuckles escaped. Humor had become a side effect of proximity. No one knew how to turn it off. Attempts to analyze the human intensified. Temporal scanners confirmed he existed entirely in the present, which offended the predictive engines. One engine reported that it could not forecast his actions because he appeared to have none planned. Another suggested he might be defective. The human responded to this assessment by blinking. "Blink detected," a technician announced. "Log it," another replied tiredly. "Under miracles." The queen observed all of this with growing detachment. Without the constant pressure of other minds, she found herself choosing when to speak. Silence no longer felt like absence. It felt like space. She realized distantly that she had never had space before. Reports arrived from across the empire. Human workers performing tasks without supervision, yet somehow faster. Security teams noting blind spots where sensors failed but nothing went wrong. Entire rooms of humans registering as cognitively quiet, not empty, but agreed. One counselor slammed a hand on the table. "This is a threat." The human shifted slightly to allow a service drone to pass. 3 models collapsed. "Threat to what?" the queen asked. The counselor opened their mouth, closed it, and frowned. "Certainty," they admitted. "Yes," she said gently, "that would explain the discomfort." Later, alone but not really alone, she stood in the chamber long after the others had left. The human remained as assigned. "Do you know what you are?" she asked him. He considered this longer than most beings would dare. Then he shook his head once. She laughed quietly. "Neither do we," she said. "That may be the problem." The empire had built itself on noise, thoughts, plans, dominance made audible. Now silence sat at its center, unannounced and immovable. And the more it tried to ignore it, the more everything else grew louder in comparison. The declaration did not arrive with fanfare, which immediately confused the empire. No psychic amplification followed it, no harmonic validation. The systems waited for a second version of the announcement, assuming the first had been a draft. None came. "Humans are to be reclassified," the Queen said calmly, as if she were commenting on the weather. "Not elevated, not restricted, observed." A counselor raised a hand out of habit, then lowered it when they realized they no longer knew what they wanted to object to. Another asked whether observed included note-taking. The question was forwarded to 3 departments and never answered. The probability engines protested briefly, then fell quiet. One sent a final message, *forecast suspended due to insufficient drama*, and powered down. Maintenance logged it as a personality flaw. The human stood beside the Queen, silent as ever. He had been offered quarters, rank, compensation. He accepted none of it by continuing to exist exactly as before. "You may leave," the Queen said to him privately but not quietly. "Or stay. The Empire will adapt either way." He considered this longer than protocol allowed. Then he remained. Someone in the back sighed in relief. Someone else joked that silence had become fashionable. Laughter spread, uneven and real. The Queen led it. New policies followed, smaller and stranger than conquest. Silent zones were approved. Humans were removed from constant oversight. A few elites complained that without psychic feedback they felt emotionally naked. Others admitted, with some embarrassment, that they slept better. One noble demanded silence breaks during meetings and was mocked until several others asked how often. The Queen noticed the change in herself most of all. She no longer reached for every mind. She listened when she chose. She waited. Once, during a heated debate, she said nothing at all and watched the argument collapse under its own weight. It was deeply satisfying. On the final cycle of session, she addressed the court again. "We believed intelligence must announce itself," she said. "We were wrong." No one interrupted. They were learning. She turned to the human. "Thank you," she said, knowing full well he might not answer. He did not. Instead, he inclined his head, a gesture so small it barely existed. It was enough. The empire did not fall. It did not conquer new stars. It adjusted, slowly and loudly complaining the entire time. At its center, silence remained, not as absence but as space. And for the first time, the Queen did not feel the need to fill it.